My name is Sarah Miller, and I'm 38 years old. If I had to describe my life in one word, it would probably be turbulent. I married young, and divorced just as quickly. The only thing I gained from that first marriage, the sole reason for my existence, is my daughter, Chloe. But God, it seems, was cruel to me. Chloe wasn't healthy like other children. She was born with epilepsy. Her mind would flicker between clarity and fog, her mood swinging from joy to despair in an instant. As time went on, the seizures became more and more frequent. For years, I endured, raising her alone. I worked as an accountant at a small marketing firm, dragging Chloe from one specialist to another. I was on the verge of collapsing. Friends and family pitied me, but it was just sympathy. You're still young, they'd say. Why don't you find someone to lean on? How can you handle a sick child all by yourself? I would just smile bitterly. Who would want a divorcee with a sick child in tow? But then, David Chen appeared in my life. He was the CEO of a successful medical tech company that partnered with my firm, a widower. He was kind and gentlemanly. 5 years my senior, he had a mature look and eyes that held a deep, lingering sadness. We didn't meet at a fancy dinner or a business lunch. We met in the hallway of Northwestern Memorial Hospital. That day, Chloe had a sudden, violent seizure, scratching me and screaming. Utterly drained, I slumped to the floor, clutching her and sobbing. That's when David walked by. He didn't look at me with the same pity as everyone else. He simply, quietly, handed me a bottle of water and a clean handkerchief. "This must be so hard," he said. His voice was low and warm. That's how we got to know each other. He actively pursued a relationship with me and my daughter. He never hid his past. His wife, he told me, had passed away after a long illness, leaving him with a considerable fortune, but also an endless loneliness. He said he saw a strength in me that his wife never had, and felt an inexplicable connection to Chloe. After knowing each other for nearly a year, he proposed. He didn't get down on one knee with a diamond ring. Instead, he came to the small, cramped apartment we rented. While Chloe slept, he took my calloused hands in his. "Sarah," he said, "let me carry this burden with you. I can't promise to cure Chloe's illness, but I promise I will love her, as if she were my own." I burst into tears like a child and nodded. Our wedding was a small, simple affair, with only family and a few close friends. I moved into David's luxury condo in Lincoln Park. It felt like turning a page to a chapter of my life I had never even dared to dream of. The beginning of our marriage was the most peaceful time of my life. David was the perfect husband. He was thoughtful, attentive, and, most importantly, he was more than just good to Chloe. His condo had 3 bedrooms, and he gave the largest one, with a window overlooking the park, to her. He painted the walls a soft blush pink himself, and filled it with a princess canopy bed, and countless toys. But a seed of anxiety remained in my heart. Chloe's condition didn't improve just because we moved into a new home. She still had regular seizures. The larger space only meant she had more room to feel trapped in. Whenever she screamed and broke things, I would freeze in fear, helpless. But David was different. He was preternaturally calm, as if he were used to this. He would hold her, pat her back, and whisper comforting words I never could have thought of. He would silently clean up the mess she made. "It's okay, Sarah," he would always tell me. "A child who is hurting needs 10 times the love." I felt an infinite gratitude towards him. I thought I was the luckiest woman in the world. I had finally found my sanctuary. I believed I had met a man who loved not just me, but the biggest flaw in my life. I started to believe in the word happiness. I thought all the storms had passed, but I didn't know. I didn't know that the biggest, most terrifying storm of my life was just beginning, and that it would originate from the man I trusted most. David didn't just express his love with words. He proved it with actions. He rearranged his work schedule to spend more time at home. "The company's stable now," he'd say. "I can manage most of it remotely. What's most important right now is family." He volunteered for the most difficult task of all, giving Chloe her medication. For me, it was a form of torture. Chloe hated her medicine like it was poison. When it was time, a war would begin. She would cry, vomit, and spit the pills out everywhere. I would have to coax her, threaten her, and finally, pin her down, and force the liquid medicine into her mouth. Each time, she would stare at me, with eyes full of hatred, and my heart would shatter. I felt like a cruel stepmother, abusing her child, even though I knew the medicine was for her own good. But David was different. He had his own methods. He never used force. He would grind the pills into a powder and mix it with her favorite things, like honey or apple juice. He would sit with her for hours, patiently playing with her and telling her stories. He'd pretend her teddy bear and her dolls were taking their medicine too, making funny faces and acting silly. Slowly, Chloe began to cooperate. She started taking the medicine from David. She'd still make a face, but she no longer fought with the same ferocity. I breathed a sigh of relief. He had lifted the heaviest burden from my shoulders. I could focus more on my work, have more time to just breathe, and live like a normal person. When I came home from work in the evening, I was no longer greeted by a trashed room and a screaming child. Instead, I'd find Chloe coloring or reading a picture book with David. She would sit quietly in his lap, sometimes letting out a small giggle. "How are you so good at this?" I asked in awe. David would smile warmly and stroke my hair. "The secret is love, honey. Kids, sick or not, they can feel who is being genuine with them. If we are patient and show them love, they will open their hearts." He studied Chloe's condition relentlessly. He filled an entire bookshelf with medical texts on pediatric neurology and child psychology. Late at night, long after Chloe and I were asleep, he'd be at his desk, reading. "My medical knowledge is all in surgical devices," he'd say. "I have to learn from scratch to understand our daughter." He even began to discuss changing her treatment plan with me. "I think the medication Chloe is on now is making her unstable," he said one evening at dinner. "She just sleeps all day. When she's on it, and when it wears off, she seems even more agitated." I've been doing some research, and there's a new class of supplements that have fewer side effects and could be more effective. "It doesn't matter if it's expensive," I said quickly, "as long as it's good for her." He held up his hand. "That's not what I mean. I want to try reducing her dosage of conventional medicine. I've been studying some holistic therapies, and I think combining them with acupuncture could help stabilize her nervous system without relying so heavily on pharmaceuticals." I hesitated. I was used to following a doctor's prescription, but we're not specialists. What if something goes wrong? David took my hand. His eyes were full of conviction. "Trust me, I would never do anything to put her at risk. I just want to find the best possible path for our daughter." I've even consulted with some old doctor colleagues of mine at Johns Hopkins. They all said it's a viable approach. "We'll do it slowly, starting with nutritional supplements and gentle herbal teas that calm the mind." His dedication and profound knowledge completely won me over. I nodded. "I trust you. I'll leave everything concerning Chloe in your hands." David put his plan into action. He personally cooked meals for Chloe with foods known to be good for brain health. He bought expensive supplements like omega-3 oils, valerian root, and specialized mushroom extracts, brewing them into teas for her. He even had a licensed acupuncturist make house calls. Every night, he would patiently massage Chloe's body, pressing on specific pressure points. And then, it seemed a miracle was happening. Chloe began to show positive changes. She screamed less, slept more deeply. The random acts of destruction stopped. She even started making eye contact with me, if only for a few seconds. I was so happy I could have cried. I threw my arms around David. "Honey, Chloe's getting better. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming into our lives." David held me tight. "I told you, we can do this. Our family will be happy, perfect. A perfect family, a perfect life." I repeated the words to myself. I didn't notice, then, the chilling glint of obsession in his eyes when he said the word perfect. I was simply drunk on happiness and gratitude, completely oblivious to the fact that his extreme dedication was the prelude to a new tragedy. About 3 months after David started his new treatment, Chloe was unbelievably different. She became unnaturally quiet. Before, her calmness was just a brief, deceptive quiet between storms. Now, the quiet lasted all day. She didn't scream, tear her clothes, or break dishes. She would usually sit on the sofa for hours, a doll in her hands, just staring out the window. At first, I thought it was a good sign. I was so exhausted from years of fighting. Seeing her sit there peacefully brought an odd sense of calm to my own heart. I could prepare dinner without having to run to comfort her. I could watch a whole TV show without being interrupted by her screams. David looked immensely pleased. "See? My methods are working," he said proudly. "Chloe is stabilizing. Soon, she'll be just like any other child." I wanted to believe him. But there was something wrong with this normalcy. Chloe wasn't just quiet. She was almost completely unresponsive. "Chloe, time for dinner." She wouldn't turn when I called. I'd have to shake her shoulder, and only then would she startle, look at me blankly, and slowly follow. She ate her food quietly, too. She accepted every spoonful I gave her, never spitting it out or complaining. But she chewed like a machine, without emotion, as if she couldn't taste whether it was good or bad. And she never laughed anymore. Before, even through her illness, she had moments of joy. She loved cartoons, and when I tickled her, she would giggle with a clear, bright sound. Now, when I turned on cartoons, she would just stare. When I tickled her, she remained still. No emotion registered on her face. I started to get scared. This silence was more terrifying than her screams. I spoke to David. "Honey, something's wrong with Chloe. It's like she's not getting better. It's like someone has stolen her soul." David dismissed my concerns. "You're overreacting again. She's just found her stability. She needs time to adjust. It's her body regulating itself. It's normal for her to be a bit dazed during this phase. Just let her rest. Don't keep trying to stimulate her. When you're anxious, she feels it, and gets anxious too." His words made sense. I tried to reassure myself. Maybe I'm just being paranoid. I'm so used to a chaotic child that I can't adjust to her being calm. I tried to trust him. But a mother's intuition is never wrong. I began to watch her more closely, and I noticed the most terrifying thing of all, her eyes. Chloe's eyes had always been beautiful. Whether she was having a seizure or being playful, they were always clear and sparkling. But now, they were empty. It felt like she was looking at me, but not seeing me. When she looked out the window, it was as if she was staring into an endless void. There was no soul in her gaze. A shiver went down my spine. I thought of the dolls in a glass display case. Beautiful, quiet, and soulless. My daughter was turning into a doll. I confronted David again, this time more firmly. "This isn't right. I'm taking Chloe to the hospital. To see her old doctor. I need a professional opinion. I'm scared. I think she's become depressed." A flash of panic crossed David's face, but he quickly regained his composure. He put his arms around me. "Sarah, don't be so tense. Don't you trust me? Everything is going perfectly. If you take her to a doctor now, what do they know? They'll just prescribe a bunch of medications again. All our hard work will be for nothing." "But I'm so worried," I sobbed. His voice took on a strange weight. "Listen to me. Trust me. I have everything under control. Chloe is just in a sort of meditative state. Leave her be. Just give me one more month. Trust me for one more month. She will change. I have everything under control." At that moment, I didn't realize the danger hidden in those words. I only saw a confident husband. Once again, I let him persuade me. I agreed to give him more time, not knowing that with each passing day, I was allowing my daughter to be pushed deeper into an invisible abyss, an abyss dug by her own dedicated stepfather. Chloe's quietness began to unnerve not just me, but others around us. I have a very close friend named Jessica. Jess and I have been friends since college, and she's witnessed every up and down of our lives. When I lived in that tiny apartment, she'd visit every weekend, bringing groceries or a new outfit for Chloe. She was Chloe's unofficial godmother. Despite her illness, Chloe adored Jess. As soon as she heard Jess's car pull up, she'd run to the door, shouting, "Auntie Jess." She loved to dig through Jess's purse, knowing there was always a lollipop inside. Even if she had a seizure moments later and threw the candy away, I cherished those brief moments of joy. After I moved in with David, Jess visited less often, not wanting to intrude on my new life. But that weekend, I begged her to come over for dinner. I told her I needed to talk. Jess arrived, as usual, with a bag of gourmet snacks and, inside, Chloe's favorite cherry-flavored lollipops. Chloe Bug, Auntie Jess is here, I called out, trying to create a cheerful atmosphere. Chloe, sitting on the sofa, turned her head. Jess's face fell for a second when she saw her. Oh my, Chloe, you've grown so much. Chloe showed no emotion, no joy, no sadness. She didn't run to her like she used to. Jess approached her and held out a lollipop. Look what I have. Your favorite cherry flavor. Chloe reached out, took the candy, and said, Thank you, Auntie Jess. Her voice was flat, without inflection. Then she returned to the sofa, sat down, and stared out the window again, the unopened lollipop in her hand. Jess looked back at me, her eyes wide with confusion. Sarah, what's wrong with her? Just then, David came out of the kitchen with a plate of sliced apples, smiling. Chloe's become so well-behaved lately, Jess. She knows how to say hello and thank you now, right, sweetie? He patted Chloe's head, and she looked up at him with lifeless eyes. I pulled Jess into the kitchen and whispered, See? She's so strange. I'm terrified. This is more than strange, Jess whispered back. This isn't the Chloe I know. She's like a robot. What is he giving her? I don't know. I shook my head. My husband, David, he's using some kind of holistic therapy. He says she's just stabilizing. Stabilizing? This isn't stability. Jess frowned. This is numbness. Look at her eyes. There's no light in them. David must have overheard, because he walked into the kitchen with a slightly annoyed expression. Jess, you may not understand. Psychological issues have a long treatment process. Chloe is in the middle of finding her balance. Please don't speak so loudly and startle her. Jess was always direct. She looked straight at David. David, I appreciate how much you care for them, but I've known Chloe since she was a baby. This kind of stability isn't normal. I think Sarah should take her to a specialist. The air in the kitchen grew heavy. The smile vanished from David's face. He looked at Jess with a coldness I had never seen before. Thank you for your advice, but I know what I'm doing. I am Sarah's husband and Chloe's stepfather. The responsibility for this family rests with me. The words were a clear dismissal. Jess's face paled. She looked at me and said, Sarah, think carefully. Dinner was a silent, tense affair. Jess made an excuse about having an early morning and left. The moment the door closed behind her, David turned to me, his voice laced with accusation. See? Your friend doesn't understand. She only complicates things. Don't let outsiders get involved in our family's business. You need to trust me. I couldn't say anything. On one side, I had my gut feeling, and my friend's warning. On the other, I had a husband who was dedicating everything to us. I chose to trust him. Jess is overreacting, I told myself, and so am I. But I couldn't sleep that night. I crept into Chloe's room. She was sleeping peacefully, but her eyes weren't completely closed. A sliver of white was visible. Horrified, I placed my hand under her nose. She was breathing, but it was incredibly faint. I sank to the floor beside her bed. Fear was a wild animal, clawing at my insides. Chloe, my baby, what is happening? Where did I go wrong? Did I trust the wrong person? But if I can't trust David, who is there left to trust? I was completely lost. After Jess's visit, I felt like I was walking through a fog. An unspeakable anxiety weighed down my heart. I tried to dismiss Jess's words, telling myself she was an outsider who couldn't understand the complexity of Chloe's condition. I tried to believe in David's dedication, in the medical knowledge he studied day and night. But a mother's intuition was like a needle, constantly pricking my conscience, never letting me rest. I started observing David more closely. He was still affectionate towards me and patient with Chloe. But something had changed. He seemed more guarded. I noticed that when it was time to give Chloe her herbal remedy, he wouldn't let me in the room. Before, he would sometimes let me help prepare it. Not anymore. He always closed the door. You go rest, honey. I've got this. The smell of these herbs is pretty strong. It's not good for you, he'd say. Or if I asked what he gave her, he'd be vague. Oh, just that blend for brain health and calming the nerves. I adjusted the dose a bit based on how she's feeling. The more he hid, the more my curiosity grew. One day, while he was in the shower, I snuck into Chloe's room. Next to the cup of orange juice he had prepared for her, there was a small, unlabeled pill bottle. I picked it up and opened it. Inside was a fine white powder. It was odorless. I sniffed it, but it didn't have the distinct, earthy smell of the valerian root or mushroom extracts he usually brewed. My heart started pounding. Just then, David walked out. His face went white when he saw me holding the bottle. He rushed over and snatched it from my hand. "What are you doing?" His voice was harsh. It was the first time he had ever yelled at me. "Why did you come in here without permission?" I was stunned by his reaction. I was just looking. "What is this?" David took a deep breath, trying to regain his composure. He slipped the bottle into his pocket. "It's a special probiotic I got from a friend in Europe. It helps Chloe absorb the herbs better. It's very expensive. You don't know how to handle it. What if you spilled it?" He was lying. I knew he was lying. What kind of probiotic would he hide so secretively? What kind of probiotic would make him panic like that? But I didn't have the courage to press him further. I was scared. I was terrified of confronting a truth I didn't want to believe. I backed away. "Oh, I'm sorry. I should go start dinner." I turned, but the image of that bottle, of that odorless white powder, was burned into my mind. I had to act. I knew I couldn't rely on David anymore. I had to find out for myself. I decided to take Chloe to the hospital in secret. I called her old doctor, Dr. Evans, who had treated her since she was a toddler. I made an appointment for the weekend and told David I was taking Chloe to visit Jess. But my plan failed. Just as I took Chloe's hand to leave, David appeared. I hadn't known he was home. He had taken the day off work. "Where are you going?" he asked, his voice casual, but his eyes were not. "Oh, just over to Jess's. Chloe hasn't been out in a while," I said, trying to act natural. David stared at me, then smiled. "That's a great idea. I'll drive you. It's been a while since I've seen Jess, too." My heart skipped a beat. "Oh no, it's okay. I already called a cab. You should rest at home." "No, I have plenty of time," he insisted. "And if Chloe's going out, I'd feel better if I was there." I couldn't refuse. I ended up in the car with Chloe. Obviously, we couldn't go to Jess's house or the hospital. Panicked, I pointed to a nearby mall. "You know, maybe we should just take her to the kids' play place here." David looked at me. I could tell he knew I was lying, but he didn't question me. He just nodded. "Fine, whatever you want." The outing was a disaster. Chloe didn't react to any of the rides or games. She sat passively in the ball pit and stared blankly on the mini train, a soulless doll. And the whole time, David never left my side. He didn't say a word, but his silence was more menacing than 1,000 threats. I realized then, David was watching me. He wouldn't let me take Chloe anywhere without his permission. My dreadful intuition had become reality. I was a prisoner. My daughter and I were trapped in our own home by her dedicated stepfather and my loving husband. David's surveillance became more blatant by the day. Claiming his company was stable, and he wanted to devote all his time to his family, he was home constantly. He drove me to work and picked me up. He monitored my phone calls, sitting next to me whenever I spoke to Jess. Our conversations were reduced to meaningless pleasantries. I couldn't say a word. Jess seemed to sense something was wrong. "Sarah, are you okay?" she'd ask. I would glance at David. He'd be peeling an apple, but his ears were clearly listening. "Yes, I'm fine," I'd say, forcing a laugh. "We're doing great. Chloe's so calm these days." "I have to go. I'm a bit busy." I was living in terror. He even let go of the part-time housekeeper. "There's only 3 of us. I can handle it," he said. "I don't like strangers in the house. It's not good for Chloe's psyche." Our luxury condo had become a gilded cage. I was the prisoner, and Chloe was the hostage. What could I do? Call the police, and say what? That my husband was taking too good care of my daughter, and giving her some unknown herbal remedy? They would laugh me out of the station. They'd say I was a spoiled wife who'd lost her mind. I had to rely on myself. I needed proof. I had to find out what was in that bottle of white powder. I started to act. I pretended to trust him completely. I feigned joy at Chloe's placidness. "You were right, honey. Chloe really has stabilized. I'm so happy." I was wrong. I should have trusted you from the start. David seemed to let his guard down. He probably thought he had completely tamed me. He stopped shadowing my every move, sometimes going out to meet with old business partners. That was my chance. I knew where he kept the bottle. In a locked drawer in his home office desk. He always carried the key, so I couldn't get to it. But I had noticed something else. Whenever he mixed a remedy for Chloe, he used a specific, dedicated cup, and he always washed it himself, meticulously, after each use. I decided to act. I needed evidence of what he was feeding my daughter. I said to David, "Honey, I think the kitchen faucet is leaking. I turned off the valve, but could you call a plumber while I'm at work today?" It was a trap. I had deliberately loosened the pipe fitting the night before. That morning, I left for work as usual. David called the plumbers. I knew that while they were there, he would have to supervise them. And most importantly, he wouldn't be able to wash that specific cup in the kitchen sink. He would have to use the bathroom sink. I was prepared. I had hidden a tiny, button-shaped spy camera in the guest bathroom, concealed cleverly in a basket of decorative towels, aimed directly at the sink. I knew it was illegal, but I had no other choice. But I needed a backup plan. I couldn't rely on the camera alone. I had to go back home, unannounced. I got to the office, but my heart was hammering against my ribs. I couldn't focus on anything. I looked at the clock. 10 a.m. This was the time he usually gave Chloe her second dose of the day. The plumbers would still be there. I shot up from my desk. "I have a terrible migraine," I told my manager. "I think I need to go home." Without waiting for a reply, I grabbed my bag and ran out of the office. I hailed a cab and urged the driver to go as fast as he could. The wind whipped past my face, but it did nothing to cool my anxiety. Only one thought screamed in my mind. "Hurry. You have to catch him in the act." My intuition was screaming at me. If I didn't uncover this today, I would lose my daughter forever. The taxi stopped in front of our condo building, and I bolted for the elevator. My hand trembled as I pressed the button for our floor. The doors opened. I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. I inserted my key and opened the door as quietly as I could. The condo was eerily silent. I could hear my own heart pounding. From the direction of the kitchen, I could hear the clanking of the plumbers working on the faucet. David would be with them. Now's my chance. I tiptoed towards Chloe's room. I didn't go in right away. I peeked through the crack in the door. What I saw was a horror beyond my imagination. Chloe wasn't on the sofa. She was sitting on her bed. She was completely still, frozen. She was wearing the pink princess dress David had bought her, her hair neatly brushed. She sat perfectly upright, her hands folded primly on her lap. But her eyes were wide open, staring at the wall in front of her. They were empty, glazed over, lifeless. A line of drool trickled from the corner of her mouth, staining the pretty dress. She didn't notice it, didn't wipe it away, didn't react at all. She was like a broken doll someone had sat on the bed and forgotten to turn off. "Chloe?" I whispered, my throat tight. No response. I pushed the door open and rushed to her. I knelt in front of her, trying to meet her gaze. "Chloe, Mommy's here. Look at Mommy." Her pupils didn't move. She stared right through me as if I were invisible. Panic seized me. I grabbed her hands. They were as cold as ice, even though it was summer. "Oh my God, my baby, I screamed. I pulled her into my arms. Her body was limp, collapsing against me. She didn't hug me back. Her arms hung uselessly at her sides. I shook her like a madwoman. "Chloe, wake up. Don't scare Mommy, Chloe." Hearing my screams, David burst into the room. "Sarah, why are you home at this hour?" When he saw me holding Chloe, his face turned ashen. He lunged forward, trying to pry her from my arms. "What are you doing? You're scaring her. Leave her alone. What did you do to my daughter?" I shrieked, my voice tearing through the false silence of our home. "What did you give her? Why is she like this?" I pushed him away, pointing to the drool staining her chin. "Look at this. Look at what you've done to my daughter. Is this stabilized? Is this well behaved?" David stammered, "Calm down, Chloe. Chloe's just in a deep sleep. The new herbs I'm using are a bit strong. A deep sleep, open your eyes, and look at her. I slapped him across the face, a strike filled with all my rage, fear, and pain. Her eyes are wide open. Is this sleeping? You monster! You've killed my daughter. No, no, he cried out in terror. She's not dead, she's breathing. Please, stop shouting, the plumbers are outside. His concern for being discovered by strangers seemed more important than our daughter's condition. In that instant, my mind cleared. I can't be alone in this house with this demon. I have to save my daughter. I scooped Chloe into my arms. She felt as light as a feather. I ran for the door. Help me, please, somebody help my daughter. David followed, blocking the doorway. Sarah, are you insane? Put her down. You're going to kill her. If you stop the medication suddenly, she could have a fatal seizure. Stop the medication. What medication? I froze. What medication? His threat, meant to scare me, only made me realize a more terrible truth. This isn't an herbal remedy. This is a powerful drug, something so strong that stopping it abruptly could kill a person. He had confessed. Indirectly, but he had confessed. Get out of my way, I snarled. With all my strength, I shoved him aside and ran into the living room, where the two plumbers were staring at us, bewildered. Please, help me, I cried. My husband has been abusing my daughter. He's been giving her strange drugs, and she's dying. Call 911. Please, call an ambulance. Please. The two men looked at each other, then at David, who was running towards us with a murderous expression. Sarah, calm down. This is a private family matter. Let's handle it quietly. The neighbors will talk. He was still worried about appearances. You psycho. One of the plumbers shoved him back. The kid looks like that, and you're worried about what the neighbors think. Mike, call 911. Now. The other plumber pulled out his phone. David froze on the spot. The number 911 seemed to douse his madness with ice water. He stared at me, his eyes no longer filled with confidence, but with pure terror. I held Chloe tighter. It's okay, baby. Don't be scared. Mommy's here. Mommy's going to save you. I collapsed onto the floor. The gates of hell were just opening. The wail of ambulance and police sirens echoed through the manicured grounds of the luxury condo complex. Neighbors peeked out into the hallway, whispering and pointing. The two plumbers, still in shock, stood by as witnesses. Paramedics rushed in first. Their faces hardened when they saw Chloe's condition. What happened to her? Her pupils are dilated, almost no reflex response. Is this a drug overdose? They quickly placed her on the stretcher and fitted an oxygen mask over her face. Guardian, get in the ambulance, now. I'm her mother. I scrambled to follow, but a police officer stopped me. Mom, just a moment, the officer said grimly. You're her guardian. Then who is this man? He gestured to David, who was leaning against the wall, looking completely catatonic. He's my husband, her stepfather, I sobbed. He did this to her. He's the one who gave her the drugs. Please calm down, ma'am. The officer asked David to remain for questioning and step inside. David looked at me with pleading eyes. Sarah, please. Just go with our daughter. Save my daughter. I screamed at the paramedics. Please, just save her. A female EMT put a hand on my shoulder. Ma'am, we'll do everything we can, but we need you to come with us. We need information about the child. The police officer nodded. All right. You go with the ambulance first. We'll conduct our investigation here. Please come to the precinct to give a statement once your daughter's condition has stabilized. I nodded and ran with Chloe to the elevator. As the doors closed, I saw David still standing there, flanked by two police officers. The image of the successful, gentlemanly entrepreneur was gone. In his place was only the pathetic figure of a defeated man. In the ambulance, I sobbed as I told them everything. The suspicious calmness, the soulless eyes, the bottle of white powder. The medical team worked on Chloe as they listened. That monster, the female EMT muttered, gritting her teeth. Based on these symptoms, it looks like an overdose of a high-potency antipsychotic, the kind used in psychiatric wards. We need to get her to the ER for detox and blood work. Fast. My heart plummeted. Antipsychotics. It was medication all over again. But this time, it wasn't a doctor's prescription. It was a massive overdose. At the hospital, Chloe was rushed immediately into the emergency room. I paced outside like a caged animal. Jess, having gotten my frantic call, rushed to my side. She didn't ask any questions. She just held me and let me cry. She'll be okay, Sarah. Chloe will be okay. You found her in time. I'm a terrible mother. I beat my chest. I didn't know. I trusted him. I let that demon hurt my baby. It's not your fault, Jess cried. That son of a bitch manipulated you. He's the one with the medical background. He did this on purpose. Pull yourself together. You have to be strong for Chloe now. After what felt like an eternity, a doctor came out. We've stabilized her for now. We've administered fluids and performed a gastric lavage. The initial toxicology screen confirms our suspicions. The doctor looked at me with pity. We found extremely high concentrations of olanzapine and diazepam in her blood. What? What are those? I asked, my voice trembling. They are very powerful antipsychotic and anti-anxiety medications, typically used to treat schizophrenia or acute mania. They're strictly controlled substances that require special prescription. For a child to be given such high doses over a prolonged period, it's the equivalent of being slowly poisoned. I collapsed to the floor. Poison. My husband had been poisoning my daughter. Doctor, my daughter. We've pulled her back from the brink for now. However, the long-term abuse of these drugs has likely caused significant damage to her brain and nervous system. It's possible she may never fully recover. In a worst-case scenario, she could be left in a persistent vegetative state. The doctor's words were the final dagger through my heart. Just then, my phone rang. It was the police precinct. Miss Miller, we need you to come down to the station. We need to conduct a confrontation. Your husband is denying the charges. I wiped my tears. Jess, can you stay here with Chloe? Where are you going? To get justice for my daughter. I stood up. My profound grief was hardening into cold fury. I will make that demon pay. At the police station, David sat with his hair disheveled. He jumped up when he saw me. Sarah, how's Chloe? Is she okay? I didn't answer him. I walked straight to the detective's desk. Here are the test results from the hospital. My daughter was poisoned with a massive overdose of antipsychotics. He did this. The detective looked over the papers. Mr. Chen, the results are clear. Do you still wish to deny this? Miss Miller, please have a seat. We've reviewed the camera you installed in the bathroom. Fortunately, it captured everything. He turned on a computer monitor. It was the video I had secretly recorded. David was in the bathroom. He wasn't washing the cup. He took out the bottle of white powder. He carefully poured a large amount, a terrifyingly large amount, into the cup of orange juice. Then he stirred it until it dissolved. I looked at David. His face was as white as a sheet. He knew he couldn't deny it any longer. Why? I asked in a low voice. Why would you do this? What did Chloe ever do to you? What did I ever do to you? David looked at me, his expression shifting from fear to agony. He broke down, not in tears of remorse, but of despair. Sarah, I didn't mean to. I just wanted her to be quiet. I just wanted a normal family. Normal? Is turning my daughter into a living corpse your idea of normal? No, he shouted. I have a past. A past you don't know about. The detective slammed his hand on the desk. Then tell us everything. What past? What was your motive for this crime? David trembled. He looked at me and began his story. A horrifying secret. A tragedy buried in his past, now unearthed, stained with my daughter's blood. Did you ever wonder why I knew so much about neurological medical devices? David began, his voice cracking, his gaze fixed on some distant point in space. I was speechless. I had never asked for the details of his past. I just knew he was a successful businessman whose wife had died. I never questioned why he chose that complex field of business. He took a shaky breath. I was a doctor, a neurosurgeon. I froze. The detective looked surprised. I was a good one. A rising star. A faint trace of pride flickered in his despairing eyes. I worked at a major hospital. I had a family. My wife was also a doctor. And we had a daughter. Her name was Lily. She was Chloe's age now. His body began to shake. Lily. She wasn't so lucky. She had a brain tumor. It was in a very dangerous location. Even though I was one of the best neurosurgeons, I didn't have the courage to operate on my own daughter. I was scared. So, I brought in the most renowned specialist from overseas. I had hope. He hung his head, his shoulders heaving with silent sobs. The surgery failed. Lily didn't make it. She died on the operating table. But the tragedy didn't end there. He gritted his teeth. My wife couldn't handle the shock. She blamed it all on me. She said Lily died because I didn't operate myself. Because I was a coward. She took her own life. Overdosed on sleeping pills at the hospital. I held my breath. It was an unimaginable tragedy. I lost everything in one day, he said, lifting his head. His eyes were bloodshot. My family, my career. I couldn't hold a scalpel anymore. My hands would tremble. Every patient I saw Lily's face. I was haunted by ghosts. So I quit medicine and went into the medical device business. I worked like a maniac to forget, to make money. I had the money, the house, the car. But I was an empty shell. I didn't have a family anymore. I began to understand a little. But I still couldn't see what this had to do with Chloe. And then I met you, and I met Chloe. He looked at me. Chloe reminded me of my Lily. Another unfortunate child. Another child with a neurological condition. I thought God was giving me a second chance. A chance for what? I asked. A chance to make it right. A chance to start over. I couldn't save Lily, so I had to save Chloe, he said, his voice gaining a desperate strength. I had to prove I wasn't a failure. I had to prove I could create a perfect family. Perfect. I repeated the word. My throat felt like it was on fire. By doing that? At first, I genuinely loved her, he explained hastily. I tried the herbal remedies, the acupuncture. But her condition was too severe. She wasn't getting better. She still screamed and broke things. She wasn't quiet. My Lily was such a quiet child. Even when she was in pain, she never screamed. You compared my daughter to yours? It wasn't a comparison, he shouted. I just felt this pressure. I needed her to be quiet. Now, I needed you to be happy. We had to be the perfect family. The obsession came back. So I used my medical knowledge. Where did you get the drugs? The detective asked. I lied to an old colleague. Told him it was for a research project. They trusted me. He hung his head. At first, I used only a tiny amount. Just enough to help her sleep. And it worked. She became quiet. You were happy. I felt like a god. I felt this sense of power, of being in control of everything. The same feeling I lost when I watched Lily die. So you increased the dosage, he confessed. Every time she showed a sign of defiance, I increased it. I wanted her to be absolutely silent. I wanted her to be perfect, like a doll. I abused my knowledge. I used her as a test subject for my own obsession. I knew it was wrong, but I couldn't stop. He fell to his knees on the floor, crawling towards me, trying to grab my feet. Sarah, please, forgive me. I never meant to kill her. I just wanted a quiet child, a family. I'm sick too. I'm a patient. Don't you see? I recoiled in disgust. I looked down at the man kneeling at my feet. He wasn't a husband or a doctor. He was a demon. A demon born from tragedy, now using that tragedy to justify his crimes. A patient? You call yourself a patient? I laughed coldly. Then what is my daughter? She's your victim. The victim of your selfishness, your sick obsession with perfection. You used your medical knowledge to control an innocent child. That isn't an illness. It's a crime. I turned to the detective. You heard him. He's confessed to everything. He endangered my daughter's life by abusing high-potency antipsychotics. I want to press full charges. David looked up at me with despairing eyes. I turned my back on him. I couldn't look at him anymore. I had to get back to the hospital. To my daughter. My poor Chloe. Still fighting for her life. Because of the man I had blindly trusted. Her dedicated stepfather. The story David told at the police station was like a bomb. His name was David Chen. Once a top neurosurgeon. A rising star in the medical community. A brutal family tragedy had shattered him. Losing his wife and daughter in one fell swoop. And his career along with them. He had transformed from a healer of lives into a ghost, haunted by a wound that could never be healed. The young detective sighed, shaking his head. He had seen all kinds of criminals, but a case this complex was rare. This wasn't a simple case of child abuse born of hatred. This was abuse born of a sick, obsessive love. A pathological drive for perfection. Mr. Chen, get up. The detective's voice was firm. No matter how tragic your past is, it does not justify your actions. You used your medical knowledge to harm a child. That is the truth. David staggered to his feet, leaning against the wall. He had no more tears to cry, no more excuses to make. The truth lay bare, cruel and exposed. I stood there, my heart cold as ice. I had once pitied him, respected him. Now, I felt only revulsion. He had used his own pain as a weapon to hurt someone else. He had used my daughter and me as substitutes for the family he had lost. I'll take full responsibility, David mumbled. But Sarah, let me see Chloe. Just once. I want to apologize to her. Never, I shouted, my composure shattering. You don't have that right. From now on, you will never see us again. The detective signaled to his colleague. It was time to book David. The initial charges were aggravated battery and child abuse. They would collect more evidence from the hospital and conduct a psychiatric evaluation on him. Miss Miller, you should go be with your daughter. We'll be in touch. I stumbled out of the police station. Evening had fallen, casting a golden glow over Chicago. But I was cold, a bone-deep chill. I hailed a cab and went back to the hospital. I sat by Chloe's bedside. She was still in a coma, the rhythmic beeping of machines filling the room. Her skin was pale, her lips chapped. I held her small, cold hand. Chloe. Mommy's so sorry. I'm so sorry. Baby. I buried my head in the bed, my tears soaking the white sheets. It's my fault. I let the wolf into our house. I didn't protect you. Please. Please, just wake up. You can scream, you can break things, just don't be so quiet. It's so scary. Jess sat beside me, rubbing my back. Stop blaming yourself, Sarah. This is not the time to be weak. You have to be strong. Chloe needs you. If you fall apart, who will take care of her? But I'm so scared, Jess, I sobbed. The doctor said she might not wake up, and if she does, she won't be the same Chloe. Her brain is damaged. What do I do now? Even when it feels like the end of the world, there's always a way out, Jess said, gritting her teeth. I'll ask around. I know a few top doctors. We have to find a way. We have to save Chloe, no matter what it takes. That night, I stayed up all night, watching the faint rise and fall of my daughter's chest with each breath from the ventilator. David's tragic past swirled in my head. Was he a man to be pitied or a man to be hated? I didn't know anymore. I only knew one thing. My daughter, an innocent life, was paying the price for his tragedy. A few days later, news about David started to leak. His name wasn't mentioned in the papers, but sensational headlines like former star surgeon poisons stepdaughter with drugs appeared. Public opinion was fierce. David's company was immediately hit. Business partners terminated their contracts, and old friends who once admired him turned their backs. The business empire he had painstakingly built from the ashes of his past crumbled once again. This time, not because of tragedy, but because of his own sin. With David in custody, I finally had time to piece everything together. I realized his obsession with perfection hadn't appeared out of nowhere. It had been there all along, lurking beneath the surface. I remembered how he organized things in the house. Everything had to be perfectly arranged. Mugs had to have their handles facing right. Books had to be sorted by height. At the time, I just thought he was meticulous. I remembered how he treated me. He wanted me to be beautiful, always. He bought me expensive clothes and insisted I get weekly facials. My wife has to be the most perfect, he'd said. I was once happy to hear those words. And Chloe was the only flaw in the perfect picture he was trying to paint. Her illness, her screams, they were a thorn in his side. They were something beyond his control. He couldn't accept an imperfect family. He first tried to fix it with love and remedies. But when that failed and his patience ran out, his inner pathology awakened. He didn't want to treat Chloe's illness, he wanted to erase it. He wanted to turn her into a quiet, obedient, emotionless doll. A perfect doll to fill the void left by his lost daughter. He abused his medical knowledge. He knew exactly what dose would silence her, what dose would make her docile. He controlled her just as he controlled everything else in the house. It was about power. The feeling of being a god. The feeling he had lost when he stood by helplessly as his wife and daughter died. The more I thought about it, the more horrified I became. What kind of twisted mind had I been living with? Around that time, there was a development in Chloe's condition. After a week of intensive care, she opened her eyes. She could breathe on her own, but she didn't recognize me. "Chloe, it's mommy." She looked at me, her eyes vacant. They weren't the soulless eyes she'd had when she was drugged, but they weren't the sparkling eyes of the old Chloe either, not even the eyes she'd had during a seizure. They were the blank, unrecognizing eyes of a newborn baby. Chloe's old doctor, Dr. Evans, came to consult on her case at my request. He shook his head, his face pained. "Sarah, you need to prepare yourself," he said. "The long-term use of high-dose olanzapine and diazepam has caused irreversible damage to parts of her brain. It has wiped not just her seizures, but also her memories and cognitive functions." "What does that mean, doctor?" I asked, trembling. He sighed. "To put it simply, Miss Miller, the daughter you knew is partially gone. Her mind has been reset to a blank slate. She will have to learn everything all over again. How to talk, how to eat, even how to walk. And her congenital neurological condition is still there. It's just been suppressed. As her brain recovers, it may return, possibly even worse than before." I collapsed. He hadn't just poisoned my daughter. He had killed the Chloe I knew. He had returned to me an empty shell, a blank canvas. "What do I do, doctor?" "You have to be patient," Dr. Evans said, putting a hand on my shoulder. "That's the only thing. We have to start from the very beginning, but this time, it will be 1,000 times harder. And it will be very expensive. Can you handle that?" I looked at my daughter. She was blankly putting her fingers in her mouth. I wiped my tears. "Yes. I'll sell my house. I'll sell my own blood if I have to. I will take responsibility for my daughter. I made a mistake once. I won't make it again. I will get my daughter back." I filed for divorce. The proceedings were surprisingly swift. David, from jail, agreed to and signed all the papers. He didn't ask for any division of assets. He signed over the condo, the cars, and all the money in his bank accounts to me. I knew it was his way of atoning, but I didn't want it. I just wanted to be free of him. I sold the condo immediately. I couldn't live for another second in a place that held such horrific memories. I didn't take his personal savings either. I only took back what was originally mine. I told my lawyer, I want all of his assets to be used as compensation for my daughter. Please create a trust fund for Chloe, to be used for her future medical and therapy bills. After selling the condo, Jess helped me pack. We left that luxury complex behind. I didn't go back to my old, cramped apartment. Instead, I found a small, older townhouse, but it was close to the hospital and a rehabilitation center convenient for Chloe's treatment. I was back to being a single mother. But this time, the burden was infinitely heavier. Chloe was just as the doctor had described, like a baby. She couldn't talk, couldn't use the toilet, couldn't feed herself. I had to feed her one spoonful at a time, and she wet the bed every night. I had to quit my job. I could no longer work full-time. I took on freelance accounting work, doing it at home at night after Chloe was asleep. During the day, I took her to the rehab center. I learned physical therapy techniques for her, and I learned how to teach her to say the word mommy again. Mom my. Mom my. She would just look at me with blank eyes, never calling for me. I was physically and mentally exhausted. Some nights, I would just hold her and cry silently. I hated David. I hated him for taking everything from me. He didn't just take away my daughter, who was smart despite her illness. He took away my faith in men, in love, in life itself. I was completely broken. My marriage, my hopes, my future all shattered. Jess was the only one who stood by me. She practically lived at my house, cooking for us, helping with Chloe, and listening to my rants and sobs. You don't blame me, do you, Jess? I asked one night. If I had listened to you then, if I hadn't blindly trusted him, things wouldn't have gotten this bad. Jess sighed. She was preparing a bottle of formula for Chloe. What's the use of saying that now? It wasn't your fault. You were just desperate for happiness. And that son of a bitch took advantage of your weakness. What do I do now? I can't go on. You have to, Jess said, placing the bottle firmly on the table. If you die, who's going to take care of Chloe? Are you going to leave her all alone? I looked at Chloe. She was sleeping, her mouth slightly open. She was still my angel. I know it's hard, Jess's voice softened, but you have to stand up, for Chloe's sake. You have to believe she can recover, and you have to believe you can do this. I knew Jess was right. I couldn't break. I had to live. I had to fight. Around that time, David's trial took place. He was sentenced to 5 years in prison for aggravated battery and child abuse. The psychiatric evaluation concluded that, while he suffered from narcissistic personality disorder and post-traumatic stress, he was fully aware of his actions at the time of the crime. 5 years felt too light to me, but I didn't have the energy to appeal. I just wanted it all to be over. I wanted him out of my life. I needed to focus on my new journey. The journey of getting my daughter back from a blank slate. The days that followed were the darkest of my life. I was like a machine, repeating the same schedule every day. In the morning, I took Chloe to therapy. In the afternoon, we practiced at home. At night, I did my accounting work. I didn't laugh. I didn't talk much, and I didn't cry. The tears had run dry. Chloe remained the same. There was progress, but it was agonizingly slow. It was like a tree that had been poisoned, now struggling to grow a single new leaf. She started to hold a spoon and mumbled a few meaningless words, but she still didn't call me mommy. She looked at me like a stranger, not a mother, but just a caregiver. Her indifference was more painful than 1,000 knives. I started to let go of everything. I still took care of her, but mechanically. My soul was dead. There was no more hope. I thought this might be my fate, my punishment. I was a person who didn't deserve to be happy. Jess saw my despair. She was worried. She was afraid I might do something foolish. She tried to pull me out of my shell. Sarah, let's take just one day off this weekend, she said. I'll ask a med student I know to watch Chloe. Let's go to the botanical garden. Just for a change of scenery. I didn't want to go. I didn't believe in God anymore. If there was a God, why would he be so unfair to us? But Jess pleaded so earnestly that I reluctantly agreed. Please, just come. If you stay cooped up in the house, you'll go crazy just like Chloe. I went. The Chicago Botanic Garden was quiet and serene. The scent of damp earth and flowers calmed my nerves slightly. Jess didn't drag me to see the flowers. She led me to a stone bench under an old oak tree. We sat in silence, watching the leaves fall. Do you still hate him? Jess asked suddenly. I flinched. The him she was talking about was David. It had been almost a year since he went to prison, and I had tried not to even think his name. Of course I do. I hate him enough to want him dead. I'll hate him for the rest of my life. Even if you hate him, the only one suffering is you. Jess sighed. It's like you're holding a hot coal in your hand. You're only burning yourself. While you're hating him and despairing, Chloe is feeling all that negative energy. How can a child recover when her mother's presence is always like a funeral? Jess's words were like a slap of cold water to my face. I was stunned. Are you saying it's because of me that Chloe isn't recovering? That's not what I mean, Jess said, taking my hand. I mean you have to save yourself first before you can save your daughter. You have to forgive, not for him, but for yourself. You have to believe that none of this was your fault. How can I forgive? I burst into tears. Don't you see what's become of Chloe? He's a monster. He's not human. You're right. He's a monster. What he did was a crime, and he's paying the price, Jess said clearly. But he's also a victim, Sarah, a victim of his own tragedy. You heard his story. A man who lost his wife, child, and career overnight. It's almost natural that his mind would become twisted. Are you defending him now? I stared at her, wide-eyed. I'm not defending him, Jess shot back. I'd curse him out myself if I could. But I want you to see the root of the problem. You can't change the past. You can't immediately turn Chloe back to who she was. And you can't kill him to release your anger. The only thing you can do right now is change your attitude. How do I change it? Let go of the hate, Jess said, looking me straight in the eye. Focus on Chloe. Love her as if you were loving a newborn baby. Don't wish for her to remember you. Create new memories for her. You need to be happy, to laugh, to sing to her. Your love, your positive energy, is the best medicine for her. Better than any doctor. I was speechless. Jess was right. All this time, I had been taking care of her, but I had been doing it in despair. I taught her words, but I did it in anger. I fed her, but I did it in tears. How could she feel my love? Think about it, Jess continued. David Chen, before the tragedy, was a brilliant doctor, a good man with a conscience. The tragedy broke him. He was wrong, and he's paying for it. But his life isn't completely over. Just like yours isn't. Do you see what I mean? I began to understand. Jess didn't just want to save me. When you forgive him, you're also giving him a chance, Jess whispered. And you're giving yourself a chance. Chloe has a long future ahead of her. Don't let hate destroy all three of you. I sat in silence. The gentle breeze rustled the leaves. For the first time in a long time, I felt my heart lighten. The hate was still there, but it no longer choked me. Jess had planted a new seed in my heart, the seed of forgiveness. After returning from the gardens that day, my heart was different. I was no longer a soulless shell. Jess's words had awakened me. I realized that if I remained mired in hate, the biggest victim would be Chloe. She didn't need a depressed mother. She needed a happy one. I started to change. I redecorated our small home, buying flowers to put in vases. I played cheerful children's music. When I took Chloe to therapy, I no longer did it in silence. I was tone deaf, but I sang to her. I read her fairy tales. Once upon a time, there was a little princess sleeping in the forest. Chloe still had a blank expression, but sometimes, when I sang, I saw the corners of her mouth twitch upwards. It was a tiny change, but to me, it was a miracle. I started teaching her from scratch again. This is Mommy. Sarah. Mommy, I would point to myself. And this is my daughter, Chloe. Chloe, I would point to her. I repeated it hundreds, thousands of times with patience. One evening, as I was feeding her some porridge, I said it again. Say Mommy, sweetheart, Mommy. Chloe looked up at me. She stared at me for a long time, then opened her mouth and mumbled, Mom, my. The spoon in my hand clattered to the floor, spilling the porridge. I froze. I couldn't believe my ears. What did you just say? Mommy, she repeated, more clearly this time. I pulled her into my arms and sobbed. Yes, it's Mommy. Mommy's right here. My daughter called me Mommy. It was the first time I had heard that word in over a year. It was the most magical medicine, healing all the wounds in my heart. My baby's back. After that day, Chloe's recovery was rapid. It was as if my love and patience had finally broken through the thick shell created by the antipsychotics. She began to regain her memories. She remembered Auntie Jess, her old dolls. She learned how to laugh and pout again. Her congenital neurological condition remained, and she would sometimes have seizures, but the symptoms were much milder. Dr. Evans called it a miracle. A mother's love is truly irreplaceable. You did it, Sarah. You really did it. Once Chloe had stabilized, and I had found my own peace of mind, I started to think about David. I no longer hated him with a fiery passion. I felt sorry for him. I felt sad that a talented, once warm-hearted person had been so broken by tragedy. I told Jess, I'm thinking of visiting him in prison. Jess was shocked. Are you crazy? What are you going to do? Curse him out? No. I shook my head. I want to let him know that I forgive him. And I want to set a condition. Jess respected my decision. I left Chloe with her, and went to the prison. When I saw David in the visiting room, I barely recognized him. He was thin and tan, his head shaved short, looking 10 years older. In his loose-fitting prison uniform, he shot up when he saw me, then immediately hung his head, unable to look at me. We sat facing each other, separated by a glass pane. How are you? I spoke first. David trembled and looked up. His once confident, authoritative eyes were now filled with regret and emptiness. Sarah, why? Why are you here? I came to tell you about Chloe. My voice was calm. She pulled through. She's recovering now. She called me mommy. David stared blankly, then buried his face in his hands on the table and started to sob. Oh, my God. Thank you. Thank you, Sarah. I'm such a monster. Listen to me. I cut him off. I will never forget what you did. The pain you caused my daughter will never be erased. But I've decided to forgive you. David's head shot up in surprise. I forgive you, I repeated. Not because you deserve it, but because my daughter and I deserve peace. I don't want to live in hatred for the rest of my life. But, my voice became firm, this forgiveness comes with conditions. What conditions? I'll accept anything, he said hastily. First, when you get out, you will get professional psychiatric help. You are sick. You need treatment. Until a doctor says you are fully recovered, I will. Second, you will never again interfere with Chloe's treatment. You will not use your medical knowledge on her. Everything will be decided by Dr. Evans. I promise. And third, I looked him straight in the eye. You are no longer Chloe's stepfather. You don't have that right. However, if you get proper treatment and truly change, I will allow you to be her friend. Mr. David, she can see, under my supervision. David broke down completely. Sarah, thank you, I promise. I will be a model inmate. I will do anything to atone for my sins. I stood up. I have to go. Keep your promise. Don't let your tragedy ruin anyone else's life. I turned and walked away. I wasn't doing this for him. I was doing it for me, for Chloe, and for his dead daughter, Lily. I believed that wherever Lily and her mother were, they would want him to be saved, not to sink deeper into the swamp of his guilt. I had made the most humane decision I could. That meeting in prison was a turning point, not just for me, but for David as well. I kept my promise. I occasionally sent him photos of Chloe painting, Chloe smiling. I never added any text. I knew this was the only motivation for him to serve his time diligently. And David, he kept his promise too. He began psychiatric therapy in prison. His sister, who learned the whole truth, didn't give up on him. She contacted a skilled psychiatrist and started his treatment while he was still incarcerated. He wrote me letters. Long, rambling letters. He no longer begged for forgiveness. He wrote about his therapy process, about how he was confronting the pain of losing his wife and child. He wrote that he realized his selfishness, his pathological narcissism. He realized his obsession with perfection had nearly killed Chloe. He wrote, Sarah, I don't ask for forgiveness. I just hope that when I get out, I can spend the rest of my life doing something meaningful. I have tainted the white doctor's coat. I no longer have the right to be a doctor. But I still have my knowledge. I want to atone. I read his letters, and I believed him. I believed he was changing. 3 years later, thanks to his model behavior, David was granted parole and released early. On the day of his release, only his sister was there to meet him. He didn't contact me. He moved into a small rental room in a different neighborhood, far from us. He started a new life. He didn't return to the business world. He did as he had promised me. He continued his professional psychiatric therapy, seeing a doctor every week. And he began his journey of atonement. He couldn't be a surgeon, but he started working as an unpaid volunteer at a small community health clinic. The clinic served the poor and the homeless, providing free checkups and medicine. His job was thankless. Cleaning, filing paperwork, taking blood pressure. The golden hands that once held a neurosurgeon's scalpel now trembled slightly as they took an old man's blood pressure. The confident eyes that once looked into the human brain now gently examined a wound on a homeless man's foot. He worked silently, devotedly. He used his medical knowledge in a different way to save people, teaching patients about nutrition and disease prevention. He patiently listened to their stories. He was no longer the brilliant Dr. David Chen. He was just Mr. Dave, a man of few words whom everyone liked. Sometimes, he would send me a little money, earned from translating medical documents at night. He sent the message through his sister, "This is for Chloe's milk. I'm sorry I can't send more. I'm afraid you won't accept it." I accepted it. I knew it was the fruit of his labor, a testament to his true repentance. Even though I had given him permission, he never came to see Chloe. He said he wasn't worthy yet. He had to be clean first, soul deep. His journey of atonement was a long one. He was washing away his sins with his time and dedication. He was not just healing others, he was healing his own twisted soul. David's path of atonement may have started in a psychiatric ward, but my path to saving my daughter began in our small, cramped townhouse. After weeks in the hospital, Chloe was out of immediate danger. But the after effects of the drug poisoning and withdrawal were horrific. She was like a young sapling ravaged by a storm. She was no longer the old Chloe. She didn't scream or break things anymore, but she wasn't the soulless frozen doll she had been on the drugs either. She had become a small, fragile creature in a constant state of terror. She was afraid of everything, loud noises, strangers, and most terrifyingly, anything related to eating. She was scared of spoons, scared of cups. Every time I offered her a spoonful of porridge, she would cringe and scream, "No, no, medicine." My heart felt like it was being squeezed in a vice. He had planted a deep, horrific trauma in my daughter's fragile mind. She lost a terrifying amount of weight and would wake up from night terrors, drenched in a cold sweat. I realized I couldn't save her on my own anymore. She needed a doctor, a real, skilled doctor, not a psychopath in a doctor's coat like David. I began the all too familiar journey of seeking out doctors. But this time, I carried an immense fear. I was afraid of medication. I was terrified that someone would prescribe another antipsychotic for my daughter. I took her to a pediatric psychiatrist. The young doctor listened to my story, looked at Chloe cowering in my lap, and wrote a prescription. "The child has severe trauma," he said. "For now, I'll prescribe a brain nutrient and a mild sedative." "A sedative?" I shot up from my seat, my voice trembling. "No, doctor, I'm not giving my daughter any more sedatives. Never." The doctor looked at me with pity, probably thinking I was the one with the problem. I quickly tried to explain the situation. He sighed. "Ma'am, there are many kinds of sedatives. She needs the help of medication. Otherwise, she won't be able to sleep and her body will waste away." But I didn't listen. I snatched her medical file and ran out of the office with Chloe in my arms, ignoring the stares of others. I couldn't do it. I couldn't take that risk again. I would rather my daughter screamed than see her in that death-like silence. I was nearing despair. Money was running out. I had to take on more freelance work at night. Jess was still my rock, taking care of Chloe and cooking for us. "Hang in there, Sarah," she encouraged me. "We'll find the right doctor. Chloe will get better." It was Jess who brought me a ray of hope. An acquaintance of hers introduced us to a retired child psychologist. He didn't run a big clinic. He only treated a few special cases from his home. His name was Dr. Peterson. I took Chloe to meet him in his small, tree-lined house tucked away on a quiet street. Dr. Peterson had white hair and kind, warm eyes. He didn't rush into a diagnosis. He just sat with me and asked about my life, my hobbies. Then he turned to Chloe. He didn't ask her anything. He took out a set of wooden blocks. "Would you like to build something with Grandpa?" he asked. His voice was low and soothing. Chloe, still scared, looked at him but didn't scream. She stared intently at the colorful wooden blocks. Dr. Peterson patiently stacked the blocks, occasionally saying, "Oh, this red block is so pretty. Does Chloe like the color red?" She didn't answer, but her eyes followed his movements. That day, Dr. Peterson didn't prescribe a single pill. He told me, "Your daughter is a complex case. She has a congenital condition, compounded by severe trauma from substance abuse. Her brain has been damaged, and so has her soul. We can't use medication. Using drugs now would be like pouring gasoline on a fire. We must treat her with love and patience." "Love and patience," I repeated, my eyes welling with tears. "Yes?" He nodded. "I will use play therapy and art therapy, but the main therapist is you, her mother. You are the best medicine for your daughter." Dr. Peterson began to guide me. He taught me how to play with Chloe, how to talk to her. He taught me massage techniques to help her relax and overcome her fears. He taught me how to use colors and music to reawaken her emotions. "Our treatment plan will be very long," he said. It could take a year, 2 years, or even longer, and it will require immense sacrifice from you. Can you do it? I looked at my daughter. She was tentatively reaching out a finger to touch a red wooden block Dr. Peterson had left on the table. I nodded firmly. I can. I will save my daughter, even if it costs me my life. And so began the journey to bring back the light for my daughter. A journey without medication, only a mother's love, tears, and endless patience. My battle, alongside Dr. Peterson, was long and arduous. Every day, I followed his treatment plan for 3 hours, rigorously. We started with the most basic thing: sensory experience. I took Chloe to a park near our townhouse. I held her and let her feel the grass with her bare feet. Cool, isn't it? This is grass, green grass. At first, she recoiled, but gradually, she got used to it. We used color. Dr. Peterson gave me a box of crayons. Let her draw whatever she wants. Don't force her. You sit beside her and draw. And let her follow. For the first few days, Chloe just watched me draw. Or, if she did pick up a crayon, it was always the black one. She would scribble meaningless, chaotic lines on the paper. It broke my heart. Dr. Peterson told me that black is fear. It's the darkness shrouding her soul. Just let her draw. The fact that she's drawing is a good thing. She's releasing her fear. I waited patiently. I drew suns, flowers, butterflies. I always used the brightest colors: yellow, red, orange, blue. This is the sun, Chloe. The sun is warm, like when mommy hugs you. Then, one afternoon, after almost 6 months, I was drawing a yellow sunflower, as usual. Chloe was sitting next to me, a black crayon in her hand. Suddenly, she stopped. She stared intently at my drawing, then slowly reached out her hand. She picked up not the black crayon, but the yellow one. My heart stopped. I held my breath, afraid to move, afraid to startle her. Chloe held the yellow crayon, looked at me once, then at the drawing. She drew a crooked yellow line over my sunflower. It was a messy line, but it was yellow. I couldn't hold it in anymore. Tears streamed down my face. I looked at her, and then the miracle happened. Chloe looked back at me. Her eyes, which for months had held only fear and emptiness, suddenly sparkled. She looked at me and the corners of her mouth turned up slightly, the faintest hint of a smile. And then, more clearly, she smiled. Oh my God, my baby smiled. After so long, my daughter had remembered how to smile. I pulled her into a hug and sobbed. Chloe, you smiled. You smiled, my baby. She seemed to feel my joy. She didn't push me away. She buried her little head in my chest. A faint, rusty giggle escaped her lips. But it was the most beautiful sound I had ever heard in my life. Mommy yelled, low. Yes, it's yellow, baby. The color of the Sunday. It was the first smile, the first ray of light after a long, dark night. After that day, Chloe began to revive like a plant that had finally found water. She started to eat. She was still afraid of spoons, so I would roll up small balls of rice and feed her with my hands. She started to say simple words like mommy, yummy, and she started to play. She fell in love with the colorful wooden blocks and started to build towers on her own. When Dr. Peterson visited, his eyes filled with tears. It's a miracle, he said. No medicine could have done this. Only a mother's love. Sarah, you saved your daughter with your heart. There was still a long road ahead for Chloe. Her neurological condition could never be completely cured. But that didn't matter. What mattered was that she had regained her emotions. She could laugh and cry, feel joy and sadness. She was a person again, not a doll controlled by sedatives. My daughter's soul had returned. While my daughter and I were piecing together the shattered fragments of our happiness, David was walking his own path elsewhere. We were officially divorced. The court papers were a liberation for me, and a part of the punishment for him. The condo was sold. By court order, he had to pay us compensation. I used every penny for Chloe's treatment. I never saw him again. I didn't want to. But I heard news of him occasionally, through Jess or his sister. His sister would call me sometimes, not to ask for anything, but just to say thank you. Thank you for giving her brother a chance to live again, to start over. After more than a year of mandated therapy, David was diagnosed as stable by his doctors. His obsession with a perfect family and his severe post-traumatic anxiety were under control. He was discharged, but he had to remain on probation in the community for the duration of his sentence. He didn't return to the medical tech business, and his medical license was permanently revoked. So he couldn't go back to being a neurosurgeon. He kept the promise he made to me. He used his medical knowledge to atone. His sister told me he had started volunteering at a small charity clinic on the outskirts of Chicago, a place that helped lonely seniors and at-risk youth. His work was thankless. Sometimes he was a nurse, taking blood pressure, bandaging wounds, giving shots. Sometimes he was an orderly, cleaning and preparing meals for patients. He did everything without complaint. The director of that clinic happened to be an old friend of Dr. Peterson's. Dr. Peterson told me, "That man, David Chen, has changed a lot. The confidence and arrogance of the brilliant doctor he once was are gone. Now, he's quiet, reserved, but he works with incredible dedication. He's especially good with the children. He patiently gives them their medicine and tells them stories. I think he sees his own daughter in them." Hearing this, I felt a strange sense of peace. The fire of hatred in my heart had long been extinguished. Now, hearing about him felt like hearing a story about someone else, someone unrelated to me, but I was glad he had chosen the right path. Then one day, Jess rushed into my townhouse, flustered. "Sarah, look at this. It's in the paper." She handed me a page from the local news section. Tucked away in a small corner was a short article. "Quiet hero saves choking child." The article told the story of a 5-year-old boy who had started choking on a piece of candy. As the family panicked, a man in plain clothes appeared, calmly performed the Heimlich maneuver, dislodged the candy, and saved the boy's life. When the family thanked him profusely, the man quietly left. A reporter had tracked him down, and found out he was a volunteer at the ex-charity clinic, and his name was David Chen. I folded the newspaper. The Hippocratic oath he had once taken, he had found it again. He was no longer a demon possessed by an obsession for control. He was a doctor again, a healer in the truest sense of the word. Even without the white coat or the operating room, his doctor's heart had been reborn from the ashes of his sin. I didn't know what our future held, but I knew that all three of us, in our own ways, were healing. Time is like medicine. It doesn't heal all wounds, but it teaches you how to live with the scars. Another 2 years passed. My daughter, Chloe, turned 8. We still lived in the same townhouse, but we had moved to a brighter, more spacious ground floor unit with a small yard where she could plant flowers. Chloe's therapy continued, but it wasn't as intensive as before. Under Dr. Peterson's guidance, she learned to express her emotions through art. She became a wonderful little artist. Her once black, chaotic drawings were now filled with a rainbow of colors. She drew Mommy, Auntie Jess, the white-haired Dr. Peterson, and butterflies in full flight. Her neurological condition remained, sometimes causing sudden panic attacks, but she was learning how to manage them. She was now attending a special education class at a local school, making friends, and her face was almost always lit with a smile. And David, I still hadn't seen him. His 5-year probation period was almost over. He was still quietly volunteering at the charity clinic. His sister no longer called me. Occasionally, Jess would pass on news of him. He was living a very simple, quiet life. He had rented a small room far from us and was donating most of the money he earned translating medical documents at night to a charity for children with mental illnesses. He never contacted me directly, but sometimes, Jess would bring things he had sent. A paper lantern he had made for Chloe during the holidays, or a bottle of herbal cold remedy he had brewed himself and sent via Jess when he heard I was sick. He never showed his face. He was just a shadow, watching over us quietly from a distance. I received these gifts with mixed feelings. The hatred was long gone. Forgiveness was complete. All that was left was a sense of wistfulness for a man who had paid such a high price for his mistakes. Our path to reconciliation began on a rainy day. It was a weekend evening, and I was getting off work late. A sudden downpour started. Chloe was at home with a neighbor. I didn't have an umbrella, and was stuck under an awning, getting anxious. I was worried the thunder would scare Chloe. As I was trying to hail a cab, an old scooter pulled up in front of me. The driver was wearing a dark green rain poncho, his helmet pulled down low. "Excuse me, are you Sarah Miller? Where are you headed?" That voice, I flinched. I hadn't heard it in years, but I knew instantly it was David. I instinctively took a step back, my heart pounding. "It's raining so hard," he said quickly, his voice flustered. He still couldn't lift his head to look at me. "Here, take this. I can wait here." He hastily took off his poncho and offered it to me. I looked at him. He was thinner, tanner, and shabbier than before. The shirt underneath his poncho was soaked on one side. "What about you?" I blurted out. "I'm fine. I'm used to it. You should get to Chloe. She's probably scared of the thunder." He knew. He still remembered that my daughter was afraid of thunder. Without a word, I took the poncho. "Thank you." I quickly put it on and tried to hail a cab, but he spoke again. "Just take my scooter. It's hard to get a cab at this hour. Don't worry, I won't do anything. I'll just drop you at the end of your street. I won't go any further." His earnest, cautious voice made it impossible to refuse. I nodded and got on the back of the scooter, deliberately sitting as far back as possible. He seemed to feel it, his body tensing for a moment before he started the engine. The old scooter sputtered through the rain. Neither of us spoke. The downpour drowned out all sound. All I could see was his gaunt back in front of me. This back was once my whole world, my support. Now, it was so foreign, yet so familiar. He stopped the scooter at the entrance to my street. "This is as far as I go." I got off and took off the poncho, handing it back to him. "Thank you for the ride." "No problem." He took the poncho, his voice still trembling. "Hurry and get to Chloe." He started the engine, about to turn around. "David?" I called out suddenly. He hit the brakes, startled. "Chloe asks about Mr. David sometimes." I didn't know why I said it. "She sees old photos of us and asks where he went." David froze, his body trembling. He didn't turn around, but I could see his shoulders shaking. He was crying. "This Saturday," I took a deep breath, "is Chloe's birthday. We're just having a small dinner. Jess will be there. If you're not busy, would you like to stop by for a little while? Chloe would be very happy." David stood there as if he had been struck by lightning. The rain continued to fall. After a long moment, he nodded, a very firm nod. "I'll be there. Thank you, Sarah." He quickly drove off, disappearing as if fleeing the scene. I stood there, watching until his shadow was completely swallowed by the rain. My vision blurred, whether from the rain or from my own tears. I knew then. Our family, though not whole in the traditional sense, was being pieced back together from the most painful of broken fragments. On the day of Chloe's birthday, I woke up early and went to the market. I bought a whole organic chicken, mushrooms, and noodles to make Chloe's favorite chicken noodle soup. Jess came over early, rolling up her sleeves to help in the kitchen. Our small townhouse felt unusually warm and cozy that day. Chloe, wearing a new pink dress I'd bought her, chattered excitedly. She had drawn a picture that said "Happy Birthday Chloe" and taped it to the wall. The drawing featured Mommy, Auntie Jess, Dr. Peterson, and a man whose face wasn't clear but whom she called Mr. David. Around noon, Dr. Peterson arrived. He was more frail now, but his mind was as sharp as ever. He brought Chloe a new set of educational building blocks. "Happy birthday to our brave princess," he said, stroking her hair. Chloe beamed and showed him her drawing. "Very well done," Dr. Peterson nodded. "The composition is stable, and the colors are bright. You've made remarkable progress." Just then, Jess nudged my arm. "Look." I looked towards the door. David was standing there. He was leaning against the doorframe, unable to bring himself to come inside. He wasn't wearing his old volunteer clothes. He wore an old, faded, but cleanly ironed light blue shirt. His hair was neatly cut, and in his hands, he held a gift box awkwardly wrapped in newspaper. He was thin, but his eyes were no longer empty or haunted like they had been. They were filled with caution, apology, and an undeniable, desperate longing. Chloe spotted him first. She paused for a moment, then let out a squeal of delight. "Mr. David." She ran to the door. She wasn't scared, didn't cringe. She ran and took David's hand. Mr. David, come in. It's my birthday today. David froze. He looked down at his hand, held tightly by Chloe's, then looked up at me. His eyes were pleading for help. I gave him a small, reassuring smile. Come on in. Everyone's waiting. With trembling steps, David entered our home. It was the first time in nearly 4 years that he had set foot in our space. He looked around the modest townhouse, then bowed his head to Dr. Peterson and Jess. Hello. Sit down, man, Jess said, pulling out a chair for him. What are you standing there for? The birthday girl gave you permission. Right, Chloe? Yep, she answered cheerfully. David perched on the edge of the chair, his back straight, his hands on his knees. He offered the gift box to Chloe. Happy birthday from me. Chloe cheered and opened the gift. Inside was a beautifully carved wooden doll of a princess in a yellow dress. Wow, it's so pretty. Did you make it yourself, Mr. David? David mumbled. I learned how. I hope you like it. I love it. Chloe hugged the doll tightly. The party began. We gathered around the small dining table. There was no feast, just chicken noodle soup, some meatballs, and a small cake. But it was the most delicious, warmest party of my life. David ate almost nothing. He just sat there quietly, watching Chloe. He watched her talk, laugh, and enthusiastically blow out her candles. The look in his eyes was no longer one of obsessive control. It was the look of a father, gentle, regretful, and full of love. As the party was winding down, Chloe cut the biggest piece of cake. She put it on a small plate and walked over to David. Chloe, sweetie. I started to intervene, but she was already in front of him. Mr. David, have some cake. David looked up, startled. His eyes were red and bloodshot. He didn't dare to take it. Here, have some, she said, her voice clear and bright. The cake is sweet. Thank you for the doll. With trembling hands, David took the plate of cake. I'm the one who should be thankful, Chloe. I'm so sorry. It's okay, Chloe said suddenly. Mommy says everyone makes mistakes, but what's important is to fix them. Dr. Peterson says so too. The words of an 8-year-old child were like a hammer, shattering the last remaining wall of ice. David bowed his head. He didn't sob out loud, but his whole body shook. I looked at him, then at my daughter, at Jess and Dr. Peterson. We were all smiling. I knew then. Our family had been reconnected. It wasn't the perfect family he had dreamed of. We were a family pieced together from broken fragments, a family full of scars. But it was those very scars that had taught us how to love and how to forgive. I placed a bowl of chicken noodle soup in front of him. Eat. It'll get cold. David looked up at me. His eyes held 1,000 words of gratitude. He nodded, picked up the spoon, and took a sip of the broth. Outside, the sun was shining brilliantly. The sunlight streamed in, falling on Chloe's drawing, on our smiles. Perhaps happiness is not found in perfection, but in the courage to start over after losing everything. And we were starting over.